Hello and welcome to this very interesting chapter about one of my favorite tools that we have within Facebook, which are the automated rules. Okay, this tool will help us to really automate our marketing and allow us to even go on vacation for a couple of weeks or at least a couple of days without having to wonder about the performance of our active campaigns. Okay, so sounds like a dream, but it's already there. Let me show you when I apply it mostly. Well, imagine the case to sell those sunglasses, okay, at the right top. And the price is around 30 euros to sell them. Of course, we gave them some discounts all from time to time, but if we sell it for 30 euros, of course, it would not make a lot of sense if the cost per acquisition would be more than 30 euros. Okay. First of all, we need to define what cost per acquisition exactly means. I assume that most of you already know that, but just with a small example, imagine that we spend 100 euros in an ad set, and this ad set will bring me two sales. Okay, so the cost per purchase or cost per acquisition would be 50 euros. Okay, because I would have spent 100 euros, it brought me two sales, so I would divide the amount spent by number of purchases, and this would be 50 in that case, and that's how you calculate the cost per acquisition or cost per purchase, which is a synonym, which is the same. Okay, and of course, imagine that to sell those sunglasses 30 euros, and the cost per purchase or cost per acquisition would be 50 euros, so more than 30 euros. That's of course not good for us. Okay, however, if we're in the green zone, okay, where at the lower part, let's say we spent 100 euros in another ad set which brought us 10 sales. Okay, then think about it. What would be the cost per acquisition? Of course, 10 euros, because you take the 100 euros amount spent, you would divide it by the 10 sales, and 100 divided by 10 is 10. Okay, so what does all of that mean? It means on your day-to-day base, what you want is you want to go through all of those ad sets. You want to go through all ad sets and see which one has a low cost per acquisition, which one has a high one, and where I can optimize. Okay, to optimize means the ones that have very high cost per acquisition, I deactivate them or at least decrease the budgets, and the ones with the lowest cost per acquisition or cost per purchase, I increase the budget to get more of those sales. Okay, and on a day-to-day base, this is very important, but it becomes very repetitive and manual. Okay, therefore those automated rules are very powerful because they help you to really put all of your knowledge, all of your decision making into conditions that you then apply automatically to your ad sets. Okay, and very important to mention at that point of time, of course, don't be afraid. It's not just the cost per acquisition and then turn off or not, because we all know and when you make your decision, you take into consideration many more aspects like cost per add to cart, cost per view content, click-through rate, cost per mil, relevance score, even, like all of those things. Of course, you have them in mind when you take your decisions, and you can also put them into the automated rules. So the automated rules are basically if-then conditions. If, for example, cost per acquisition is above 30 euros, then turn off the ad set, like the one in the red zone at the top. And then on the other side, if the cost per acquisition is below 13 euros, then increase the budget for this ad set, for example, by 20%. Okay. Here, very important to note, when we're talking about the algorithm of Facebook and Instagram, if you make changes to the ad set budget by 20% or more, which includes already 20%, the machine learning will reset its learning phase. Okay, so if I apply, and what that means, we'll talk about later on in another chapter when it comes about the exact details of the algorithm. But on this point of time, it's just important for you that you would not create an automated rule that decreases or increases by more than 20%, and not even by 20% exactly, because 20% is already included in resetting the learning phase. So I would rather recommend to decrease by 15%, 18%, or increase by 15%, 16%, something like that, but it should be less than 20% the change, okay? However, coming back to those 4 scenarios, okay, red, very bad, okay, I mean, the cost per acquisition is higher than the final sales price. That's of course not good. Let's say, for example, it's between 22 and 30. It's not good at all, we know that, but maybe it's in prospecting to acquire new customers who then convert in remarketing, so I can probably still give it a chance, but I want to decrease the budget that I have in that one. Then there's this keep going zone where I'm comfortable with the performance. Of course, it's not super profitable, so I wouldn't put more budget in this section, but I just leave it as it is. And then there's the green zone where I want to increase the budget even, okay? So what do you think? How many rules would we need in those for those 4 scenarios? How many automated rules do we have to create? Well, basically we need automatic rules for all of those scenarios, but the keep going zone, because the if then condition would be, if the cost per acquisition is in this area, then don't do any changes, okay? So we can skip this condition, because it just maintains what it does without giving an automated rule. But for all the other 3 areas, I love to apply automated rules. And now I'm going to show you how I do that exactly. Well, first I need to find the right area where to set it up. It's here in all tools, create and manage automated rules. If I click on it, I enter an interface like that, where I already see an overview of all the automated rules that have been created. Okay, you see, like, they're in place for quite some time already. And yeah, as I said, I always try to apply those 3 automated rules, like turn off if cost per acquisition is very high, decrease if it is too high but still acceptable, and increase if cost per acquisition is low and therefore very interesting for me. And this is reflected here in those 3 ones. You see, decrease by 20% if cost per acquisition is okay-ish, increase if cost per acquisition is very good, and turn off if cost per acquisition is way too high. Okay, so if you want to create the rule, you click on the green button over here. If you want to edit or take a look at ones that have already been created, you just click on the name here. But for now, imagine that we click on one of them and see how I set them up. Okay, let's start with the worst case scenario. Worst case scenario is that the cost per acquisition is higher than 30 euros. Okay, what I want Facebook to do, if the condition cost per purchase is more than 30 euros, then action turn off ad set. Pretty straightforward. Okay. One important thing to mention is this one here. Facebook strongly recommends to do not apply those automatic rules to ad sets that have less than 8,000 lifetime impressions. Okay, which makes a lot of sense. Imagine that you create an ad newly this afternoon, and then within 1 or 2 hours the automatic rules will already take place, even though you have just spent very little money on that. Okay, so that it's not too optimal. Therefore, Facebook recommends to have shown your ad at least 8,000 times. Okay, until the automatic rules will be applicable. Let's say, for example, the cost per mille is around, the CPM is around 2 euros, and to get 8,000 impressions, it will be 2 euros per 8 times, because 8,000 impressions will be 16 euros. So more or less after 16, 20 euros, the automatic spend per ad set, those automatic rules would take in taking action and will start. Okay, so that's one thing that they give you per default, and I mean, of course you can get rid of it, but I would recommend to maintain it. Okay. And then of course when we talk about if then conditions, the condition varies depending on the time range you give it. Okay, so for example, if the cost per purchase just today was more than 30 euros, then turn off. Okay, or if the cost per acquisition on average over the past 7 days or over the past 30 days or even lifetime was more than 30 euros, then turn off. Okay, and of course the longer this time period, the more conservative you are when it comes to decision making, and the shorter the time period, the more aggressive you are. Okay, so what I recommend here is to see those automatic rules rather as a conservative fallback option if you manually don't have time to take the decisions on your own. Okay, and therefore I love to choose here time range lifetime, or at least last 13. Last 14 already is very heavy, but at least last 30 days I'm comfortable with that. Okay, what does it mean? That means if this ad sets has already had more than 8,000 impressions and over its lifetime had a cost per purchase of more than 30 euros, I want to get rid of it. I don't like it. Okay, it's just my fallback option that I don't have ad sets that cost me more than they bring me. Okay, and then you can get an email notification all the time when this rule was applied. Here you can define who's gonna be the subscriber for that email, and then simply give it a name, and that's it. Okay. Very important for you to know is if you create the rules from here, so you go into automatic rules and create a rule here, it will be applied to all the assets you have, to all the ad sets you have. Okay, but if you want, for example, to differentiate between automatic rules for prospecting as well as automatic rules for retargeting, because usually the cost per purchase should be significantly lower in remarketing than in prospecting, you would have to go to your ads manager, not campaign level, but ad set level. Okay, and there you click on exactly those ad sets that you want to apply those rules on. For example, you choose all the retargeting ones and apply some kind of rules, and then you choose all the prospecting ones and apply another set of rules. For example, in my case, those 30 euros are even for prospecting. Okay, and in remarketing I would apply to deactivate an ad set if the cost per purchase is below 25 euros, above 25 euros. So I'm more radical when it comes to remarketing than in prospecting. Okay, so far that was it for the first automatic rule I love to set up. So the very conservative one, turn off if it performs very poorly. Okay, then there's another one when my cost per acquisition is more or less acceptable, actually too high. It's 22 to 30 euros. Okay, and then I say decrease the daily budget by less than 20%. So here it's not optimal the setup. I know that the optimal setup would be here. If cost per purchase is, and then you can click between 22 and 30 euros. So this one is more, okay, but the optimal would be between 22 and 30 euros. Then decrease daily budget, and not by 20, but by 19, 18, 15% or something like that. Okay, and now important, when we say turn off ad set, it doesn't need a further condition, but here when we say decrease the budget or even increase the budget, it asks us for a minimum or maximum daily budget cap. What does that mean? Well, that means, let's say we start our ad set with 10 euros per day. Okay, and then imagine this automatic rule would apply every day. Well, at one point of time, those 15-18% that you decrease it will be less than €1. Okay, and you can set whatever you want. You can set here, for example, €5. So to make sure that an ad set will not spend less than €5. On this level, it's not so important, it's not so crucial, but when it comes to this one, it's super important. Okay, because imagine you say Facebook, hey, you're allowed to increase my daily budget, okay, for this ad set, if the cost per purchase was less than 13 euros, then theoretically it would be possible that Facebook increases your budget until up to 1 million euros. You know, like it would go up and up and up and up and up and up. Because if you don't set a cap, it would be able to increase your budget all the time. So therefore they ask you and they oblige you to really set the maximum daily budget cap here, that let's say you start with 10 euros and it gets good numbers and it increases the budget automatically. It won't increase it to more than 20 euros per day. So maybe it's a good idea to start with those automatic rules and set as a minimum cap 5 euros. Let's start with 10 euros, and as a minimum cap 5 euros, and as a maximum cap 20 euros. So you would be sure that your ad sets would move between the 5 and 20 euro range, and if they're performing very poorly, it would be even deactivated automatically. I think this is a very good way to automate your optimization and to go on vacation without having to worry about the performance of your ad sets. Have a good day. Bye bye and Dankeschön.